Funding for NotAVampyre is provided by viewers like you. Find perks and bonus content at patreon.com/NotAVampyre. Thank you. I was gonna try to do with my hair like the Disney design of Wendy, but that's way too much effort. Instead, I'm gonna show off these earrings that I found out they used to make clip-on earrings. You didn't have to pierce your ears once upon a time. It's great. The 1953 Disney Peter Pan was a pivotal film for my childhood. It introduced me to the concept of Neverland and the boy who never grew up, got me lost in the fantasy of one day flying away myself. I also remember that at the end of first grade, my teacher gave us all these stacks of books to keep, and there was a picture book of the Disney Peter Pan that was on top, but it was going to the next person, and my teacher saw that I was so upset that I wasn't going to get the book that she decided to give it to me. And here it is! It's falling apart, it's been very well used, but it's one of my most treasured keepsakes. Personally, my favorite part was always the map of Neverland. The film created a baseline for the mythos that I've grown to love and would explore as I got older by going back to the original book and seeking out other tellings. But to be honest, y'all, it's not that good. Like really, it sucks as a version of Peter Pan. And what's worse is that most people believe that Disney invented Peter Pan. Yes, there's still parts to love. For instance, the musical cues are always on point, memorable, and effective at enhancing scenes. The narrator, though not in the film long, pays a subtle homage to the iconic and distinctive voice of the narrator from the book. Mr. Crocodile is just a hoot and has so much personality. And the characterization of Captain Hook is perfect. He's threatening as a villain while also being a comedic goldmine. I can laugh at the slapstick scenes while also completely believing that he'll shoot a man for having an annoying vibrato. He's not watered down or made toothless. Honestly, he's probably my favorite part of this whole movie, to the shock of no one. But as much as I enjoy this Hook, there's so much more to hate about the movie. One of my biggest problems is how much this version just hates women. With the exceptions of Mary Darling and Tiger Lily, the key feature of every female character is female jealousy. They all want a piece of Peter so much that they will literally try to get the other female characters killed when he shows them the slightest bit of attention. All of the mermaids want her dead simply for being a girl around Peter. Tink tries to get Wendy killed because Peter is interested in her. Though that is a feature of the book and other adaptations too, her jealousy is such a key component to her character that Hook exploits it to trick Tink into revealing Pan's hideout. And yeah, I know even in my beloved 2003 Peter Pan, Tinkerbell teams up with Captain Hook to lead Hook to Wendy. But very importantly, she does not tell him Peter's hideout. She only tells him how to get to Wendy. Wendy accidentally leads him to Peter. And most egregious to me is that the female jealousy is half the reason Wendy wants to leave Neverland. In basically every other version, Wendy decides to go home when she remembers her parents and fears that they will not welcome their children home. But here, that doesn't even come up. She determines that they must leave after seeing Peter seemingly romantically dancing with Tiger Lily. She even brings up Tiger Lily as a reason she's upset with Peter. And speaking of Wendy, they make her so annoying. She's basically the embodiment of nagging housewife. Throughout the movie, she's characterized as being talkative to the annoyance of other characters. Hell, Peter even exclaims that she talks too much. She insists her brothers go to Neverland too without running it by Peter. She's what people mean when they say, the old ball and chain. I'd be able to just accept that this is just who this particular Wendy is if it weren't for the fact that I've already seen the stereotype a million times in other places used as a reason why women are inherently more troublesome than men. The movie itself handwaves Wendy's righteous anger at the mermaids literally trying to drown her and admitting it as Peter laughed. He tries to brush off her feelings, claiming, "It was only a joke," and then the scene just ends. It just moves on to the rescue Tiger Lily plot, metatextually telling us that what just happened to Wendy doesn't actually matter because now there's more important things happening. Wendy's not allowed to be upset because the people around her don't care. Not even the movie does. Honestly, the movie might have been the kindest to Tiger Lily, but only insofar as they decided against giving her a hideously racist voice and just have her not talk except for her cry for help. Woo. And while we're here, what's that voice they gave to Cubby? Like, is it purposely annoying because he's fat and often portrayed as the dumb one? I feel offended on the character's behalf. At least it didn't carry over into the Return to Neverland sequel. And jeez and crow, can we talk about how racist this movie is? And in the What Makes the Red Man Red song. For starters, if the Lost Boys and the natives have a play-fighting relationship, why are the boys the first suspect when Tiger Lily goes missing? That's a horribly unkind way to characterize a chief who is very aware of the pirates and the mischief they cause to the inhabitants of Neverland. And then, not only does Wendy decide to leave Neverland over her jealousy of Tiger Lily, but also because she's so offended when her brothers start acting like the natives. She literally says,
"Do you want to stay here and grow up like savages?"
and suggests that having a mother will keep her brothers away from savagery. Wendy isn't worried that they've caused their parents pain and that they're about to be forgotten. No, the problem is that John and Michael aren't behaving like English gentlemen by being in Neverland. As though Wendy has to save them from being corrupted. And that actually reminds me of another Wendy problem. For years, I thought the Peter Pan mythos robbed Wendy of any focus. But now that I've read the book, I realize that's not the case with every adaptation. Wendy features greatly in the novel, and while not acting as a fighter, we still see a lot of her thoughts, and she influences the boys in the story through her role as mother. Again, she's the one who takes charge and reminds her brothers of their life in England and decides to end their time in Neverland. Throughout the book, we spend a lot of time watching Peter and Wendy interact. We see them start their affection, create a facsimile of married life, and watch them ultimately part as Wendy can't help growing up. You really feel that it's Peter and Wendy's story, even if she's not the most active female protagonist. It's also notable that the book was published under the title Peter and Wendy. But in the Disney version, what does Wendy do? Sew a shadow, get reprimanded for talking too much, nearly get killed, then just follows Peter everywhere until she decides to go home for the sake of jealousy and keeping her brothers civilized. Even though her perspective still bookends the story like in the novel, she plays such an inactive part in the in-between that you almost forget that she's supposed to be important to Peter, or this narrative is supposed to revolve around their tragic relationship. Her finest moment is when she courageously chooses to walk the plank instead of becoming a pirate even if Peter can't save her, and I wish we had more of that. More of her doing something other than being dismissed by those around her and acting like a harmful stereotype. The Peter Pan story is flawed. That is true. It is also horrifically racist and sexist, but the 1953 Disney adaptation is especially so. For all of the racism in it, the book still viewed the natives as being noble and not like the bad end to some morality tale. Yes, Tinkerbell tried her damnedest to get Wendy killed, but after her week of banishment, she returned to Peter's side and begrudgingly just put up with her. Instead of her jealousy just forcing her to help Peter's enemy, Hook actually learns where Peter lives early in the story by nearly burning himself after sitting on a mushroom that concealed the chimney. Wendy was jealous of Tiger Lily and how she clearly felt towards Peter, but she didn't hold it against Peter or really act on it. Part of that was because she was trying to embody the sexist ideal of the housewife who kept her opinions to herself, but even still, that has nothing to do with her decision to ultimately leave Neverland. And though other versions try to put Tiger Lily with John instead of Peter, I personally think that the Japanese Peter Pan proves that Wendy should be with Tiger Lily. They're just too perfect for each other. And dear Evan Hansen, Wendy in the book is not even half as nagging housewife as the Disney Wendy is. The book actually portrays her like a little girl trying to imitate what she's heard grown-ups say and do, especially mothers. And as much as the film tries to mimic the themes of motherly love with songs like Your Mother and Mine, Disney's Peter Pan doesn't really concern itself with that concept in earnest. It just goes through the motions because you expect it, while cutting any real scenes of Wendy playing mother to the Lost Boys, Peter trying to replace his mother with Wendy, or even Peter's complicated need and simultaneous rejection of mothers. I hear Michael call Wendy his mother and just don't buy it because she hasn't been any sort of mother to him before that point. I'm just left feeling that there were scenes the movie just isn't showing me that would justify Michael's confusion. Scenes that I've experienced in other versions that actually make the moment mean something. I'd be fine to just accept that this telling of Peter Pan sucks and leave it at that. But the problem is Disney is too big for that. Disney has such a chokehold on our collective narrative memory that I get comments assuming that Disney did Peter Pan first. That my beloved 2003 movie is a sort of retelling of Disney's movie in particular. That's a better live adaptation of Disney's story than what Disney could ever do. And that's so frustrating. So frustrating that a company built on adapting other people's stories so much that it's even adapting its own movies gets to be people's only reference point for those works. That after a certain point in time, retellings of classic films with hundreds of years of history get boiled down into their Disney version, to where looking outside of Disney makes you some sort of a hipster. It makes me sad because this honestly not good and pretty hateful film still overshadows better versions that not only hold true to the themes of Peter Pan, but are often kinder to its own characters. And what I fear most is that the upcoming Disney live-action Peter and Wendy will just cement for another generation Disney's dominance of how we think of Peter Pan and whose story it is. All I can say is, thank heavens Disney doesn't hold the rights to Peter Pan as a whole. At least others have the chance to tell stories of Neverland that fly circles around this trash. I almost forgot to do my end thing. Whoops. If you want a content stream to be informed whenever I put out a video, then check out this Discord invite link for a server that my friends and I made. Check me out on Twitter at NotAVampyre. And if you feel like throwing me a buck or two, then patreon.com/NotAVampyre. Thank you for consuming this video, and until next time. When you start your script and you just realize you're actually not filming, smart.